Oh, it's time for another edition of the Daily Racing Form Weekend Preview right here on SportsGrid. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Alexa Zepp. Alexa, we have a big weekend ahead because we have 3 Kentucky Derby prep races around the country. 3 races where points will be offered to the top 5 finishers of those races. So these are horses that are all trying to qualify for the most prestigious race, the biggest race in all of horse racing a little later on this year. It's a fun time because it reminds me of what's happening or what happens in college basketball. You have all these regional tournaments and you have teams that go through their conferences and they try to make it into the big dance. That's what's happening here. These are all horses that are trying to get a ticket to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it's exciting. You have ones you think are going to do really well that turn out to, kind of fade back, and then ones that come out of the blue who show up. It's an exciting time of the year for sure.
Let's take a peek in at the current Kentucky Derby point standing list, if you can, before we actually look at the Holy Bull. So this is the setup right now, and we're actually going to see the number 1 man this weekend, Citizen Bull. He's going to be in the Bob Lewis out at Santa Anita. He'll be making his first start of 2025. We'll talk about him in our final segment. We'll talk about the Withers from Aqueduct in our second segment. But right now, let's get on into the Holy Bull over at Gulfstream Park. You and I were there live last weekend, and after a big weekend, it's not like they take a 1 week off. They go right back to having another big weekend of racing with the Holy Bull. And we start, Alexa, on the inside with kinetic control. So all of these races are offered with 20 points to the winner, 20 points to the winner, 10 points to the runner-up, 6 points to third, 4 to fourth, and then 2 to fifth. All you have to do is finish top 5, and you pick up a couple points. If you win one of these races, though, you're probably pretty close to being in. So this is a big, big weekend. Just one win in one of these big races puts yourself in. What do you think about?
You need like 40-ish points,
Yeah.
to get a spot in the Derby usually.
Yeah.
So you're halfway there if this is your first one that you've won.
And some years you'll need a little more, a little less, just based on like horses that get hurt, how deep the field is, maybe a couple races where you'll have the same winner win and you won't have a lot of points distributed there. Not the biggest fields in the world, but I think of all 3 of them, we've got the most interesting one first, because I think there might be 3 or 4 different horses that could come out of this race that could be really, really strong horses. We start with Kinetic Control, who comes off of a win last time out. Took him 4 starts to break his maiden, but he was able to put it all together in that most recent race. It's not as if I have a problem with him overall. He's just going to face some tough foes in here and some horses to the outside of him that have other early speed.
Yeah, that race he won, he wired the field. But in the prior races, he didn't win, got second. He came from off the pace. So I don't know that he needs to be on the front end, which is probably a good thing, since I do think there's a lot of pace in here and horses who will want that spot. But I mean, he's going to have to improve. And trainer Dale Romans does not have very encouraging statistics for horses coming off a win, 6% win rate, horses coming off a layoff, 9% win rate. So those are some tough stats to put faith behind.
Yeah, in a big, tough field like this. The number 2, Ferocious, he was one of the top 5 or so 2-year-olds last year. Very talented, but he's kind of been his own worst enemy, Alexa, because he's a little bit quirky. If you notice and you kind of go through his races, he's kind of had some issues in each one. In the Hopeful, he was sort of floundering. And then when Chancellor McPatrick came up alongside him, it like kicked him into another gear. He looked like he was going to be done at the top of the lane. Then in the Breeders' Futurity, he's banging around in the gate before. He doesn't really get out of the starting gate all that well. He runs into some traffic in the Breeders' Cup, but the Connections decided to put some blinkers on him. And for those of you who may not know, when you add blinkers to a horse, it can do a couple things, but mainly it will give them more focus. They'll just be looking at what's ahead. They won't be looking all over the place and getting distracted by different things. And it should also give them a little bit more speed, just have them more forwardly placed in there. If those are the cases and they're able to kind of tweak a couple of the small issues he had, he could be the horse to beat in here.
Yeah, I mean, you horses are herd animals, right? So you'll see before the race, they like to pair up, and during the race, a lot of times they will pair up down the backstretch. So you hear trainers talking about it, you hear jockeys talking about it. Some horses need someone to run at, they need somebody to
target.
To target, yeah. So, but these horses are so young, right? That was a 2-year-old year. They're just figuring it all out. They're just babies. So I think he's very, very talented. I don't love that he has a little bit of a pattern of being a disappointing favorite in some of those recent starts, but I mean, they were super competitive, difficult fields. So I think he's one to beat.
Tappan Street is the number 3. I was joking with you before we started. I kind of got the feels when he won in his career debut where it looked to me like this is a horse that could be a Derby horse because he started to back up in his race. He was moving back to 4th, and then all of a sudden he got a little bit of daylight. And you could see him stretch his legs when he got a chance to move. He seemed like distance should be no problem for him. I'm talking about the number 3, Tappan Street.
Yeah, this horse is very, very talented, very interesting. Only been out one time though. So, sometimes when those horses step up in class and step up against tougher fields, it's a turning point. Either, they rise to the occasion or they don't. But very low odds, morning line of just 3-1. But should be a player in here if he steps up.
Guns Loaded won the Mucho Macho Man in his most recent start, so he's proven. And what's nice about him, he's probably one of the quicker in this field, Alexa. When we look at the pace projector, as you can see, he's the number 4, so they have him slightly ahead of Tappan Street, and he could be one that gets loose on the front end in here.
Yeah, I'm confident saying that Guns Loaded is an early running style horse. I'm not confident saying that necessarily about Tappan Street. We've only seen him run one time, so we don't really know what his running style is yet. He might be an early horse, but he might have tactical speed and be able to, roll with the punches. But Guns Loaded definitely wants that lead, and luckily it doesn't look like there's anybody faster than him early. So hopefully he can, break well, get the position he wants. They did spend $800,000 on him as a yearling, so they have very high expectations for this horse on the Derby Trail.
Irad Ortiz Jr. will be aboard. We move to the number 5. He's not joking. He's a grade 3 winner on the synthetic, but his only dirt start, it's hard to get a gauge because he completely missed the break and he was just behind. So they'll give him another shot on the dirt. And you'll see this a lot of times where at this point of the year, if you have a good horse on the turf or a good horse on the synthetic, sometimes you just take a shot and you see, is this the type of horse who can be in the Derby or in some of those Triple Crown races?
You have to. I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
a horse owner. I manage them. I mean, this is what you're doing it for, right? You want to know if you have a champion and can run in a $5 million race and the most prestigious race in the world. So yeah, they're taking a shot. They're not joking about it, but like you said, he's a wild card in here because he had that really bad effort, but there was, shipping to a new location, new surface, all sorts of things at play, some traffic, some issues. So we really don't know if he hates the surface or if it was just a bad run.
Final 2 horses in this field, probably horses that you can get from off the pace a little bit. Burning Glory is one where if they go fast up front, Alexa, he's probably the best of the closers. But that would kind of be my negative on him as well at Gulfstream Park because it's not the easiest place to try to come from way, way out of it. And we're not really sure how fast they'll be going in here early on, right? Guns Loaded could be there, but then maybe Tappan Street. I don't know if they're going to be lining up. So I think he'll pick up some pieces late, but I just don't know how fast they'll go early to set it up for him.
I agree. I mean, I think that closing style is like advantageous from like a pace setup, but again, it's Gulfstream, so you don't want to be super far back. Has been in improving form, but the last race he won, none of those horses he beat that day have really come back to do anything super spectacular. But this is a Juddmonte homebred, and so for those who don't know, they're major players in horse racing, founded by the late Prince Khalid of Saudi Arabia. They've won best breeder, best owner many years. So they tend to have good horses.
Round out the field with Burnham Square. He made a big early move last time out to the front end, and his first 2 races were pretty good. He was knocking on the door and then finally put it all together. Do you think he fits with this group? Do you like him at all here?
I like him all right. I've included him underneath. I think he's shaping up to be a presser closer type. Hopefully can stay a little bit closer to the pace. He has 3 siblings and all are winners, which from a breeding standpoint is pretty impressive.
There are our selections there. We have the same top 2, just in a slightly different order. I'll go 3, 2, 6, 4. Alexa with the 2, 3, 7, 4. So just one difference for the 2 of us there. We both kind of key in on a couple of the same runners. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we head up to New York. It's time for the Withers at Aqueduct.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, we got those frequent flyer miles ready because we're going to move from Gulfstream Park. We're going to head on up to Aqueduct for Saturday, race number 7. It's the Withers, no longer a graded stakes race, but $250,000 up for grabs, and those very important Kentucky Derby points. 20 points will be awarded to the winner. There's only a field of 7 in here, Alexa, and to be honest, the Withers and some of the New York races earlier in the season, they haven't been as strong races when you're talking about developing Kentucky Derby prospects. But a good horse can come from anywhere, and one of these horses, maybe a couple of them, will end up in the starting gate come Kentucky Derby Saturday. Let's start with Global Steve. So this is a 1.125 mile race at Aqueduct. Global Steve is 2 for 2. He won both of his races over at Parks. One of them was on a sloppy track. He will stretch out, though, for the first time. He goes 2 sprints to a route in here. How do you think he stacks up? Do you give him a chance with this group?
Interesting. Like you said, undefeated. They're adding that distance today, but when his trainer and jockey team up, they've won 28% of the time. So, and that's with a very large sample size of over 80 horses. So that's a very significant stat. But his speed figures are a little bit of a cut below some others in here. So I do think we'll need an improvement, but I think it's possible for him to show us an improvement based on what we've seen so far.
And the numbers that Alexa was referencing, you can find those in the daily racing form past performances. And we always give you a code where you can go get all access past performances. We have an entire database of statistics. You can go through every horse, their last 5 years, everything. And you can formulate the stats however you want. It's just like a wealth of information there. You can check that out with the all access past performances over at drf.com. Let's move to Surfside Moon. His lone win came going a mile on the turf. So he's kind of a tough read for me, but I will say this rider, Savici, who came down from Woodbine and you and I knew are very familiar with, he's been fantastic so far and a very aggressive rider, seems to just pick horses up and put them on the front end. So I'll give that a positive, but I just need to see more from him overall on the dirt.
Yeah, I'm not really feeling him in here. I didn't see the kind of improvement I want to see from a 2-year-old that makes me think, oh, this is a Derby caliber horse. But then again, he's been off since October, and running at 2 is hard. And sometimes they do need that time to grow into themselves and learn. So it'll be interesting to see this 3-year-old debut. But again, workouts coming into this are really, really slow. So I don't love seeing that either.
The number 3, Corvus, is a New York bred, and his lone win came against New York bred. So this is an open race where he's going to be facing horses that were bred all over. He did lose to a couple nice horses, though, in his last few races, Alexa. A horse named Sand Devil, who is 2 for 2, he lost to. He also lost to Cyclone State, who you'll see all throughout the running lines of a lot of these horses. And that horse has won their last 3, including the Jerome last time out. Can you make a case for Corvus?
I mean, Corvus has been steadily improving every race, I think. I think this is going to be a very tough spot for him. I don't know if I think he can win. I think he could hit the board maybe, kind of round out the bottom of the exotics. But he should be trying to come from off the pace. And if you look at the Time Form US pace projector, it does indicate this should favor the front runners, the ones on the lead, a little bit more.
Yeah, that might be the problem. He's going to be coming from way, way out of it here. Maybe more of a horse to pick up some pieces. Uncle Jim has raced twice. He won his career debut, and then he came back in his second start. He lost to Cyclone State, who we see in a lot of these horses' past performances. Cyclone State came back to win the Jerome in his next start. And I'll say for Uncle Jim, it was his first try going long. He kind of loomed up. He took a shot, and then he just faded. He tired a little bit. We see horses do that when they have that progression sometimes. They have to kind of build the foundation up going a little bit longer. So I don't really have knocks on him, Alexa. He's just going to need to improve to get the better of some of the top horses in here.
My only knock on him is the odds. We're given 3-1 morning line odds, which again is just a guess of what the odds are going to be when the race goes off. It's all determined by how much money people wager on each horse. But I would want more than him to bet him.
That's the key, right? You want more value on that. So as gamblers, we have to be patient. We also have to demand that value. Remember, there's so many ways we can get action in. You don't always have to feel like I have to throw some on this or wait, be disciplined, especially if you're someone that's watching this and you're playing baseball, football, basketball. There's a lot of different options. Always be disciplined and demand value as a gambler. Let's move to Mo Quality, Alexa, the number 5, who we both like because his overall body of work, it's really good. I love horses like this that I can go through each of his races and they make sense. His career debut, he finished second. He lost to a really nice Wesley Ward horse that is named Touchy, who's a stakes caliber horse. Then in his second start, Mo Quality wins. He breaks his maiden over at Churchill Downs. Then in his third start, he runs in the Smarty Jones in a stakes race at Oaklawn. He finishes second that day, loses to a nice horse named Cole Battle. And one of the horses he finishes in front of, Kale's Angel, is a really nice sprinter. He came out of that race and he won a sprint stakes race next time out. Like, he just makes a lot of sense in here.
Yeah, I mean, never been worse than second. And if you're looking at the composition of those races, I mean, 2 of those were 11-horse fields. So obviously if a horse is getting second in a 5-horse field, it's much more impressive. In an 11-horse field, when they're having a lot more competition, handled the distance, handled the move up in class pretty well. So I would expect improvement the second time out going long distance. He makes sense.
We move to Captain Cook. Shout out to Jesse Pinkman. Now, Captain Cook was a winner last time out, and it was a really impressive win over at Aqueduct, but it was in the slop. So when a horse wins like that on a sloppy track, I'm always a little trepidatious, right? Because was it the sloppy track that did it, or was it just the improvement? But he's certainly heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. I mean, won by over 9 lengths. So you're like, wow, but slop carries speed, and also can, be hard for other horses to make up ground. So makes sense in here. Definitely could be one to beat, but getting that morning line favorite odds.
Check, 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 check. Omaha, 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 as Peyton Manning would say. We round out the field with Omaha, Omaha. Another one who was behind Cyclone State last time out. He was second in the Jerome, and you kind of know what you're going to get with this guy, Alexa. He's just a deep closer. He's going to drop back. He's going to hope they go fast early. You see him way behind on the pace projector. He's the number 7, far behind everyone else. But if they go fast, he will come closing.
He will. I have included him as my second choice in here. He's used to running the long distances. He's that closer. The added distance should help. But, it's just favoring front runner sucks. But I like Omaha.
So let's get to selections as we get set for our next commercial break. Alexa and I will both put the 5, Mo Quality, with that versatility. He has some speed, but he can pass horses. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll head out west and we'll talk about the 2-year-old champ, Citizen Bull.
going to get rid of all the badness, if you will, over the past few decades for the Raiders and set yourself up for the future. It's a horrible job to take if you expect to win, but it's not a bad paying gig, so go ahead and take it.
With an owner in Mark Davis who has continued to make bad decision after bad decision. Does Pete Carroll leave a culture behind that Joe Brady in 2 to 3 years takes over?
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
He did nothing for 5 weeks. So he's becoming his brother. So I don't want to hear about how great TJ Watt is with his 0 playoff wins. And he's the first guy to admit it. He comes right out and says, I've never won a playoff game. I don't matter. All right, at least we all know who the best player on the team is. It's George Pickens. If you don't believe that, well, then screw you, too.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
We'll see if they get McCain back. Kelly Oubre, Yabusele's been good. Caleb Martin's a defensive specialist. Andre Drummond can still give you, almost a double-double at any point. I can't go south on this team. And now you're giving it to me at 2-1 to make the playoffs? To be in the Final 8? Folks, give me the Philadelphia 76ers to make the playoffs at plus 210.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Our final segment for this week, we're going to head on over to Santa Anita. We're going to talk about the Robert B. Lewis. But before we do, Alexa, let all the folks out there know how they can get some free all-access past performances.
Yeah, we have a free card for you. You can scan the QR code on the screen or head to drf.com and use DRFSGPPS code to get your card.
So we'll head on over west to Santa Anita. We'll talk about the smallest field of the 3 races we're going to discuss. But we have the 2-year-old champ from last year who's going to be in this race, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, Citizen Bull. We'll talk about him in just a moment. Let's start with Madacat Road. And what makes this particular race tough, Alexa, 5 horses in here. 3 of them, the 1, 2, and 3, are all trained by Bob Baffert. So when you have multiple horses like this, they've all shown some speed. Like, they can be forwardly placed. But I think this is the one that is going to be sitting because he's actually shown that he can pass horses. And I think that could be a key in a small field like this. If a couple of them are jockeying for position, he can sit off a little bit. And I think the pace projector kind of has it accurate. He'll probably be in the 3rd or 4th spot and hopefully be passing some horses late. What do you think about Madacat Road?
So, just in general with this race, I think it's a really interesting race to talk about, but I think it's a little bit seedy. Like, to me, it's less
Not a great gambling race.
Yeah, it's less about the horses and more about what's the plan? What's the trainer intent? Because these 1, 2, and 3, Madacat Road, Citizen Bull, and Rodriguez, all trained and owned by the same people. So it's like, what's going to be most advantageous for them? Because in my opinion, those are really the 3 main contenders in here.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Totally agree.
And
I would be shocked if either of the other 2 horses won this race.
Yeah,
They're very big long shots.
And it's like Citizen Bull already has basically enough points to go to the Derby.
And he doesn't really need this race.
He doesn't need it. I mean, every top 5 get points, so they're all going to get something. He'll, even if he ran less, he'd get a couple more that just bump him into that Derby spot for sure. And then, the other 2 don't have any. So for them, it might make sense. They just get to control the dynamic of this race so much.
Absolutely.
And so it makes it difficult for me to handicap and say this is going to play out based on these horses' merits.
No, you're very right. And that's, as gamblers, it's what's so tricky about it. Like, who has the best chance of winning on Saturday is a different conversation than who is the most likely horse to run or win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah,
right. Those are.
Because if you're an owner, you want to get all 3 of those in the Derby. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Like having 1 in the Derby is incredible, but yeah. So Madacat Road's a great horse.
and I guess if we're trying to talk about tactics, this would be the one that would sort of hope that the 2 next door to him go hook up with each other, because Citizen Bull is pretty quick, and that's how he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, going right to the front end. And Rodriguez, who's the 3 right next door, he's also pretty quick. I will say one additional tool that we have. Anything you can do when you're handicapping the races, like the more you can, the more knowledge you can gain, it can only help you. Our friends at ExpressBet, XBTV, they actually show the morning workouts for a lot of these horses. They'll record them in the mornings and show. And I would say I wasn't all that high on Citizen Bull's recent workouts in the morning compared to this horse, Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He looks like an absolute monster in the mornings. Really, really good. He earned a big speed figure when he won. And Alexa, I think if they wanted to have one of the three horses go to the front, it would be him. Like, they could actually let him get the front in here and kind of dictate things.
I agree. I like Rodriguez in here from a tactical standpoint. Won his last race by 7 lengths just a few weeks ago at Santa Anita. So definitely, that's who I have on top for this race.
And unfortunately, Clock Tower, I mean, shout out to Back to the Future. We want to save the Clock Tower, no doubt about it. I just don't know if Clock Tower has much of a shot in here. At the very least, he has speed. He's a grade 3 winner on the turf, but this is just a way tougher. Like, the three horses to the inside of him are way tougher than anything he's faced so far.
Absolutely. And same with Valentine's candy. I mean, I probably shouldn't admit this on TV, but I ate an entire box of those, like,
the hearts?
Nerds. No, the nerds.
Oh, the nerds. Okay.
Yesterday, the Valentine's end cap got me. And that's the most interesting thing I can say about Valentine's candy. Although it does make sense that he's in here because the top 5 get money. He's going to get $4,000 even if he gets last. So it makes sense. They throw him in here. They get at least a month of bills paid, a couple derby points. Yeah.
And we've seen crazy things happen in horse racing. 1 or 2 horses comes out of the gate wrong. 1 or 2 horses stumbles a little bit. Maybe it could set up for a long shot like Valentine's candy. Well, it's time for us to finish up with this edition of the Weekend Preview.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Is it just a matter of his contract, his age? I mean, usually things like this get fixed pretty quickly, but this one is not fixed, and now it's just super uncomfortable.
The opportunity or the idea of getting another team involved adds more complication to the situation, and it doesn't seem like a resolution is anywhere in sight, but the more suspensions come in, the more it's clear that the saga is over, or his time there is over.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Pharrell has taken over. Let's go. It's Pharrell. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Pharrell. Coast to coast. It's pain-free Friday. Pharrell stolen out. Minnesota Mahogany waxing it up. 100, 200. The fancy, the burgundy, the bad.